This is episode 5 of the Wrong Fun podcast, dedicated to all things science fiction and fantasy.
Welcome aboard. We've a long voyage ahead, so we've lined up the best entertainment money can buy. Let's welcome our hosts. Hailing from Oaks Colony, Sean, and from Broncoville Mining Colony, Allie. So sit down, strap in, and hold on while the captain fires the thrusters to maneuver the ship away from the station. Doesn't anyone tell computer programmers to document their code anymore?
Welcome back to the Wrong Fun podcast.
You're a wrong fan and you're having wrong fun.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Allie.
And together we're going to take you on a rocket ride in the science fiction and fantasy universe.
So Sean, what were you up to this week?
Well, I finally did it. I registered and I am going to HonorCon.
Woohoo!
So I'm excited.
Awesome.
I'm going to bring all of my Marco Close books and have Marco sign them.
Are you going to be like a fangirl?
Yeah, pretty much.
Awesome.
I'm going to wait till he walks by and I'm going to say, Major Caudle, USMC retired, and see how that goes.
You should record that. Seriously, that'd be awesome. Record it.
We'll see how that goes. Probably get stuff thrown at me. So, we have sponsors.
Yay!
Yay. Thank you for your sponsorship.
Yes, thank you.
And as a reminder, we run entirely on your sponsorships. That pays for our bandwidth. It pays for our download site. It pays for the books that we read. And if we ever get enough money, it'll actually pay for us to go to cons.
Yay!
Which would be really nice. Like to do more of that.
Definitely.
And so that brings us to next week's book.
So what are we reading?
A Long Time Until Now by Michael Z. Williamson.
Why don't you tell us about it?
10 soldiers on a convoy in Afghanistan suddenly find themselves lost in time. I kind of feel like I should do that voice. In a world where 10 soldiers on a convoy in Afghanistan find themselves lost in time. Somehow they've arrived in Earth's Paleolithic Asia with no idea how they arrived or how to get back. The shock of the event is severe. They discover small groups of similarly displaced Imperial Romans, Neolithic Europeans, and a small cadre of East Indian peasants. Despite their technological advantage, the soldiers have only 10 people and know no way home. Then 2 more time travelers arrive from a future far beyond the present. These time travelers may have the means to get back, but they aren't giving it up. In fact, they may have a treacherous agenda of their own, one that may very well lead to the death of the displaced in a harsh and dangerous era.
You're like the movie phone guy.
Huh?
I said you're like the movie phone guy.
In a world, that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of sad to hear that he died.
I know.
Can you imagine being like an icon for like something like that?
I know, right?
Yeah, I think I watched a video on him. He talked he would occasionally do that to his kids, and they just rolled their eyes or something. I have to find that video again. It's hilarious.
If you do, you should post it.
I'll take a look for it, and hopefully I'll find it. I'll post it in the show notes. The video that I saw of him, he just seemed like a fun guy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think that would be... Can you imagine being known for something like that? That'd be pretty neat.
I could see him like narrating his kids like videos, like if he goes to the school play, and he's sitting there with the camcorder and in a world
where a guy who does movie voiceovers has 2 children up on stage.
That would be awesome. I wish he was my dad. That'd be so cool. Sorry, Dad.
I don't think it's possible to be cool to your own kids.
No, you gotta torture them.
Yeah.
I torture mine as often as I can.
I think that is no matter how cool you actually are, your children will always think that you're just not cool. Because I think that's just genetic.
You're a huge dork no matter what.
Yeah. And all their friends are like, oh, your parents are cool. And you're like, oh, God, no, shut up.
No, don't encourage them. Yeah, I've had my kids say, "Don't encourage her." I've had them say that because I'll do stuff in the background when they're on Skype or they're on like TeamSpeak playing games.
Yeah,
and I'll do crazy crap in the background just to tick them off, and yeah, they're like, "Don't encourage her. Your mom's cool. Don't encourage her."
Sean, you have an incoming call on the Ansible. It's our guest, Cedar Sanderson.
Computer, what do your databanks have on Cedar Sanderson?
Cedar Sanderson was born an Air Force brat in Nebraska and spent her childhood en route to new duty stations. She has had the usual eclectic range of jobs for fantasy and science fiction authors, ranging from comedy magician to apprentice shepherdess. Her fascination with science dates to her early childhood spent with her grandmother on the Oregon coast, studying the flora and fauna and learning to prepare a meal from what she could glean from a tidal pool. This led to a lifelong interest in science, cooking, and herbalism. She is currently attending college in Ohio, pursuing a dual STEM major in forensic science and microbiology.
Patch her through.
More bad Ansible reception he'll complain about.
Welcome to the show, Cedar.
Thank you for having me.
Computer, can you boost the signal?
Sorry, this is as good as it gets out here in this part of the system. Does he think I'm Scotty? Does he think I can unfuse the emergency bypass controller on the matter-antimatter integrator and magically get better reception? You been to Hundan.
So, Cedar, you posted an article on the Mad Genius Club called Publishing's Bellwether, where you discussed the sales numbers for books longlisted for the very prestigious Man Booker Prize. These numbers don't look very big to me.
They are small, but they are reflective of literary book sales. And it's to the point where a few thousand sales can make or break an author these days.
The post goes on to say that getting nominated for the Man Booker Prize did basically nothing to pump the sales of these books. That's gotta be embarrassing. You think that getting nominated for an award would signal to readers that the book was worth reading?
It does signal to a certain very small subset of readers. And, I mean, if you look at the numbers of the Booker Man sales, it did elevate them a little bit, but we're talking really small amounts. I mean, a 1,000, a few hundred extra sales because they were on the list. And it's just that most people really don't care about award-winning or being on the list. They might actually look more at something that had won an award. And again, it's all based on, we're looking at the literary reading pool, which is a very small percentage of the actual reading published, but publishers treat it as bigger than it actually is. It gets given more weight than the numbers would reflect.
You also point out that the publishers are printing books that they hope will win these prestige awards, but they don't sell very well. Aren't they effectively subsidizing these books with the money that are made by books that are actually popular? And is that fair?
I think as an author, if I were one of the people that were selling hundreds of thousands of copies of books and the money that was being made from my books was actually being put into producing and selling these other books, I might not be very happy about it. I'm sure that the authors of the literary award-winning books breathe a sigh of relief knowing that James Patterson has just sold another 1 million copies, because that means they can get published again. So it's all relative when it comes to being fair. And yeah, the publishers are definitely using popular titles to subsidize other titles. Otherwise, it just wouldn't work as a business decision.
Okay, now, these were some highbrow literary fiction type books. What are normal sales figures for something in a more popular genre like science fiction and fantasy?
Well, it depends on where you are as an author. I mean, if you are a best-selling author, say Larry Correia or John Ringo, you're probably looking at tens of thousands of books sold on your release week. If you're talking about a mid-list author or an indie author, you might be looking at just a few thousand books sold in the initial month or so after release. It's still not a really huge number. I mean, 300 million people in the US, but how many of them read books? That is changing, however, with ebooks becoming more affordable. It's really difficult to get accurate book sales numbers because BookScan, which is relied on by the traditional publishers, only looks at a tiny fraction of actual sales. So the extrapolation from that tiny amount of data does not accurately reflect real-time sales. This is why Author Earnings Report came into being, was because it was actual data that could be pulled out of Amazon. And sure, it's just one source from Amazon, but Amazon's the 800-pound gorilla in the room right now. So that's the closest we can get to real sales numbers.
So you mean in our computerized, connected world, these book sales are pretty much a state secret?
Sales numbers are, for a business, they're a proprietary thing. more than that, what the sales numbers are reflect what they have to pay out to their authors. So it's in their best interests to have them be opaque even within their own company.
Both Sarah Hoyt and Kate Polk have mentioned that print runs on science fiction books have fallen dramatically since the 70s. With it being so easy to get a book on Amazon, and with sci-fi fantasy movies and games so very popular, with Comic-Con and DragonCon being wildly popular, how can book sales be falling?
It depends on what books you're looking at. If you're looking at tie-in novels to those science fiction fantasy movies and games that we were just talking about, that's huge. Those sell huge numbers. But the traditional publishers have been pushing books that fit certain agendas, and they have not been looking at what's selling really well. Star Wars tie-in novel? You can make a mint on that. A novel about how horrible humans are and how we're killing our planet? There's not as many readers for that one. The genre is starting to bloom again with indie authors who come into the market and write what they want to read, basically. So they're writing stories that are becoming very popular. If you look at Doug Dandridge or Chris Nuttall, and they're selling 100,000 books. There's a market out there. It's just, it hasn't been tapped into because they've been trying to manipulate the market.
Something I've noticed as I started to pay attention to this is there's some sort of battle going on over ebook pricing on Amazon. What's that all about?
That actually has led to a massive National Department of Justice lawsuit, which the traditional publishers and Apple lost. They were trying to push a way of pricing, the agent pricing, that was basically they were setting prices for ebooks and tying them to paper books as far as pricing went. And they were insisting that Amazon went along with it. And Amazon was trying to make sure that no ebooks were ever priced more than $9.99, which is still kind of a steep price for an ebook when we're talking about fiction ebooks, not nonfiction. Indies have no such limitations. If you're publishing independently, you can price your book as you want, or you can set the first in the series for free and do the Bain model of marketing with the first taste is free, and after that you pay. That's always the way I try to do it. But so the battle has become that the indies are pricing low, and the traditional publishers, since they got Amazon to give in and not keep them down to $9.99 or less, you'll note that, like, say, for instance, Shepherd's Crown, the latest Pratchett, is $12 for the Kindle ebook. The latest Neil Stevenson was $17 for the Kindle book. You can buy the paperback cheaper than that, and people do. I think that what is going to happen is we're going to continue seeing the traditional publishers claim that ebooks are a dying market, that they're going to go away, because they're seeing their sales plummet. But the reality is that if you look at the author earning report, indie authors are eating TradPub's lunch. The income per author is proportionally much higher now for an independent publisher than a traditionally published author. And that's because all the sales are going to the indies. And sure, their books might be a couple of bucks a pop, but when you're selling 10 times as many as the $12 and $17 ebook, you're going to make more money.
I just got a Kindle, and sort of on a whim, and let me tell you, as soon as everybody figures out how awesome a Kindle or any other kind of ebook is, that's going to be the end of libraries.
I'm allergic to dust. As a former librarian, this is a tragedy. But I read on my tablet, I read on my phone. I own a Kindle. I don't use it very much. I have my tablet that's my multi-purpose art and reading and everything. And you can read on your computer, so you're not limited. You don't have to have a dedicated e-reader to read ebooks anymore. I bought my grandmother and my mother both Kindles for Mother's Day a while back because my grandmother was having trouble reading. She couldn't read regular text books anymore. Her eyes have gotten too bad. But I bought her a Kindle and I set it up for her and showed her how to set the text up to the size that she could read. And she's reading again, and she's delighted with it because she had run out of large print books at the library that she hadn't already read. So there's a huge market out there.
I've heard both sides claim wildly different things. I've heard some people say, look, there's no physical book. It's all data, so ebooks must be cheaper. And I've heard people say, well, the book itself is cheap. It's all this editing and back office stuff that costs some money, so ebooks should cost the same amount. Do you have any idea which one's correct?
Well, I can tell you that as an independent author, if you're willing to do all the work yourself, it costs nothing to publish an ebook. If you know that you cannot do everything by yourself and no author can do all of their own editing, then you can get away with publishing an ebook relatively cheaply. At that point, it costs about $10 for the ISBN for the print book, so it ties together. The reality is that ebooks do not cost as much to publish as a print book. And if you're already publishing the print book, you've already done all of the editing and the formatting and the setting up. And I have discovered in my adventures with Overdrive and library books and reading traditionally published ebooks that they're not actually that well edited. I've had several that were published in the last 5 to 10 years and had egregious editing issues that I've tripped over. Which isn't to say that all indie books are high quality. They aren't, but that's usually fairly easy to ferret out when you look at the sample. So the reality is that you can charge a whole lot less for an ebook. The back office stuff depends on what you have going on in the back office. If you have a high-end office in Manhattan and staff of 10 or 15 or 20 people, then there's going to be a whole lot of expenses. If you are doing something like a small publisher does and you outsource all that and people are working at home and using this nifty new device called the internet to get all their work back to the publisher, and then the publisher presses the button and goes, boink, it's gone. There's so much less involved in that than having the whole infrastructure set up. And I think that's what's going to happen to publishing, is it's going to go to much looser infrastructure than the having offices and staff.
But having people do all that work at home, that's nowhere near as prestigious as having an office in Manhattan.
No, it's not. And some of what the controversies are that are going on in traditional publishing right now are about power and prestige. You know what they say about academia, the fights are so vicious because the stakes are so small.
Well, having just got a Kindle, I find it difficult to justify spending full price on an ebook. But I'll snatch up something that cost me $2, $3, $4. I imagine that most readers are the same. Would the increase in sales number make up for that lower cost?
Absolutely. And then you get into Kindle Unlimited, where the reader pays $10 a month to be able to borrow. Basically, it's an all-you-can-eat buffet for books. You can have 10 at once, but you can return one and borrow another one right away. And I know people that read multiple books a day doing this, and the authors get almost as much as if the readers were purchasing their book through having their books in this program. So for voracious readers, being able to find inexpensive books or using Kindle Unlimited is the way to go. And for authors, being able to control your own income like that is also the way to go. And if you price a book for less than $5, that falls under the threshold of an impulse purchase.
That's exactly what I've found.
Yeah, I mean, if it's less than $5, and they don't really think twice about pressing the button.
Hell, you can't even get a Big Mac meal for that.
Right, exactly. And these days, books are being read so much more than they were before. People keep telling me that we're in a society that no longer reads, which makes me look at them funny and go, okay, so what's a text and what's an email and how about blogs? Those are all reading.
Yeah, fair point. Well, the indie published Martian not only sold wildly, it's now a blockbuster movie. Indie books have made it onto the shelves of Walmart. Are traditional publishers dying?
I don't know if they're going to die. I think they're probably going to restructure. It's kind of like the dinosaurs that became the crocodiles in the rivers now. I think that's what we're going to see. Simon & Schuster in particular has a thriving vanity publisher branch now where they are snatching up want-to-be indie publishers, and these people are paying several $1,000s to have their book published. I think we're going to see more of that kind of scheme happening for people that don't know how to become that wildly best-selling indie author like Andy Weir, who wrote The Martian. And it's going to be the same as it was during the days when traditional publishing was thriving. The person that sells The Martian is going to be that lottery winner. It's still not going to be tried and true. But traditional publishers are definitely on the way out, even if all they wind up doing is restructuring something more like that crocodile than the T-Rex.
If you're a new writer, is there any compelling reason to go the traditional publishing route?
Yeah, if you can't do it all yourself, then finding a traditional publisher to partner with is definitely going to be a weight off your shoulders. But by traditional publisher, I don't necessarily mean the big five. There are a lot of small publishers out there that help new writers get their feet on the ground and get running. What I do see coming is that there's going to be a lot more awareness of what kind of rights you're selling and how much control and money you're giving away. I don't think that the agency model where the author wound up with 12.5% of the list price of the book, I think that's going to go away. I hope so, because as a new writer, if you have the confidence to become a small business owner and acknowledge that that's what you're doing, because that's what any writer is doing. But if you have the confidence to become an entrepreneur, then absolutely you should go indie.
Sounds very much like what you're saying is that the internet and our connected world is acting in the same way on books as it's had on every other sort of media.
Yes. Gutenberg and his press was revolutionary in his time, and now we have Amazon and Smashwords.
Well, thank you, Cedar. I appreciate you spending some time with us. Any final words for the listeners?
I would say that if you are willing to try and go indie, I would find a community of people you can talk to and that aren't trying to charge you money for services. The Mad Genius Club is a great place to start looking for that.
All right, Cedar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You can find more from Cedar Sanderson at cedarwrites.com. Links to Cedar's website and Amazon author page are in the show notes.
I got a nice little credit from that Barnes & Noble debacle about a year or so ago because of the pricing stuff with the publishers. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I found that very interesting that the publishers are working so hard to keep the prices on ebooks so high.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense because they don't have to pay anything to put them on ebook format.
I can understand that they want the ebooks to support all the effort that they're putting into it. The money from ebooks has to pay its share of the production costs. But I think the real problem is if you think, hey, I'm going to sell 10,000 books, then you want to sell 10,000 books as expensively as possible.
Yeah.
If you're going to sell 10,000 books and you ignore the fact that if you drop the price to impulse purchase, you're going to sell 25, 35, 40,000 instead.
Yeah.
These are just obviously numbers I've just pulled out of my hat. But if you assume that the pie is fixed, it's only so much, there's only so many people who are actually going to buy books, then naturally it makes sense to charge as much as possible to get as much money out of that fixed group of people as possible. But I think as Kindle readers are like, well, you can get one for $50 now.
I know.
I mean, I bought an extra. I had a Kindle, and it came out for $50, and I bought the $65 version of it so we didn't have the ads on it, and my wife uses it.
Yeah.
It's a heck of a deal.
Oh, and a lot of people that don't have money for computers and stuff buy them to use as their computer.
Right. You can do stuff with them.
I know.
You know, all you need is Wi-Fi.
People buy them for their kids, knowing that if it gets broken, it's not like a super duper expensive. People buy these cheap tablets all the time for stuff like their kids or things like that.
Yeah, heck, they make a kid version that has a you break it, we'll send you a new one guarantee.
Yeah. And you get your kids reading on them, and people use them all the time.
So I think what we're looking at right now is that as people recognize that a Kindle is the new thing, or a Kindle Reader app on their iPad, or whatever else you want to put it on, is the new way to get a hold of books, we're going to see a huge increase in the number of people who are buying books, especially if those books cost $3, $4, $5.
Yep.
As long as it's under $5, it really is an impulse purchase.
It really is. I can't tell you how many times I'm broke and I buy them all the time. I was like, $2? All right.
Seriously. I took a look at it, and because I already have all of the Frontline series, the Marco Close books, because I already have the books, I purchased them through Amazon, I could get the Kindle version for some ridiculously reduced price.
Yeah.
And for another ridiculously reduced price, I got the audiobook for book 3, the one that I didn't have the audiobook for.
Amazon's really good about that, though.
They're picking my pocket like 3 different times, and I'm like happy for it. You know, not only did they get the money for the book, but they got me to pay extra so they had an electronic copy of it, and extra on top of that so I had an audiobook version of it, because who knows, maybe the wife will want to listen to it on the way up to Thanksgiving this year.
The first thing I had was a Barnes & Noble Nook, and they didn't do like Amazon does. So I had to shell out a lot for ebooks on Barnes & Noble. So that's why I was happy when the settlement came in, but I think it's just Amazon that does this. I don't think any of the other ebook sellers do it.
I think the problem is we have people looking at things in a fundamentally different way. Amazon's like, let's just move as many of these as we can. And we'll take a small amount off the top of every single one of these sales, and we'll make a bucket load of money. And Amazon got told from the very beginning, look, your crazy, stupid internet model of selling people books and then mailing to them is never going to go anywhere. And everybody laughed at them.
Yeah.
And guess who's laughing now?
Yep.
There's also, however, the problem is Amazon is putting themselves in a position where they will be the monopoly. They will be the only way you can do something. And that always kind of worries me, and I know it certainly worries a lot of other people.
Yeah. Well, and if they get too big, then somebody will step in and no.
Yeah.
Because they've done that with other companies, so.
One of the things that Baen Books does is Baen Books doesn't put digital rights management on their ebooks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you have, well, like Long Time Until Now, the next book that we're going to read is, it's DRM free. It says right on it. It says no DRM because that's what the publisher wants. Baen Books' attitude is if they sell you the electronic copy, if you port it over and read it on your Nook, they don't care.
Yeah.
You've bought it, you can do what you like.
Yeah.
The assumption is that most people, like me, are not going to take the time to try to give the copy of this book to all of their friends.
Well, and even if you do, you're more likely to turn them on to a series and they'll buy more.
Right, and I've heard that. I've heard other publishers say, hey, look, I'm not too concerned with people stealing the book. He read a review of somebody who got the book on a torrent site. And like the guy not only liked the book well enough to steal it off a torrent, he also liked it enough that he put out a review and said, here, go, this is how you find it. And I won't steal a book. You're not going to catch me on a torrent site.
Well, I suspect a lot of people get them on torrents because of how expensive they are.
Right, but why do you put the effort into stealing something on a torrent site when the book is $3, $4, $5?
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't for $3, $4, $5, but if it's like $20, then yeah, I can see it.
I wouldn't even for that. I just wouldn't have it. You know, I'm not paying $20 for a book.
The library actually has a lot of ebooks. They're more than they used to.
I got audiobooks from them, which I really appreciated. And then they have, you know, the ebook audiobook part of that. I don't remember what it's called, but you can listen to that on your phone. It's really cool.
Overdrive is probably the...
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, and they have tons and tons of audiobooks. Ebooks were not as common on the library sites until, I think probably in the past year or two, I've seen a lot more.
Okay.
They mostly have audiobooks, but I've been seeing a lot more ebooks when I look for stuff.
And I've been listening to fewer audiobooks since I started listening to so many podcasts. But, I mean, I have a little wall here of where I printed up all the ebooks that I got at the library and that I could listen to. Books that I was interested in listening to. I think I got like, you know, the 100 books everybody should read.
Okay.
You know, top 100 books list, something like that. Yeah, let me tell you, some of those suck.
They do.
Some of them are freaking horrible.
I'm going to say it. I didn't like Dracula.
Oh, well, all right.
It was boring. I was bored reading Dracula. And I can't do audiobooks because I get so focused on whatever I'm doing that I don't hear anything that...
I understand that. I only ever did it because I drive a lot.
Even driving.
Well, no, I have no trouble with that. I have had my new company car for 2 weeks. I have almost 1,400 miles on it already.
Oh, wow.
That's how much I drive.
But even driving, I can't pay attention. I'm too busy watching the road and doing... I don't know. I'm weird about that. It's with books, because I don't want to miss anything on a book, because then I'm like, what happened? I'm confused.
I understand that. So I really think that it was very interesting. The reason I really wanted to talk to Cedar Sanderson was because she did this article talking about the Man Booker or the Booker Man, whatever it was, prize. And I've always heard it as the Booker Prize. And the Booker Prize is huge in apparently a very small circle. It's one of the few book prizes you'll ever see on the evening news.
I was going to say, I've never actually heard of it.
Apparently, it is the second most prestigious book award there is after the Nobel Prize for Literature.
Wow.
So it's a big honking deal.
The only one I know is the Cadbury or whatever it is.
Never heard of it.
The ones they give children's books.
Oh, what struck me though about this is how few of the books actually sold. Right, you're giving a prize to the single best piece of literature in the English language this year, and all the books on that list would disappear underneath, one good science fiction bestseller.
Yeah.
And the real interest I had in this particular prize was, what is the Hugo Awards turning into? Mm-hmm. If what they're doing is they're looking towards the literature end of the world where nobody reads it effectively, and they're awarding just that sort of literature, just it has a sci-fi fantasy setting, then are they driving it into that corner where nobody reads?
I have found that I associate anything that says award-winning with boring. So award-winning movies, boring. Award-winning books, boring. That's kind of been how I associate it after years and years of boring material. It's award-winning, I should go check it out. Ugh, it's so boring. Or depressing.
Or depressing.
Boring or depressing.
What did Sarah Hoyt say about literary taste and how they changed around World War I?
Yeah.
It went from, it was high literary stuff if it talked about classical illusions, because educated people would get the illusion. Mm-hmm. And then it changed to, start from square one, and now we're going to talk about unpleasant people doing unpleasant things and dying in unpleasant ways.
I don't want to read that. I don't want to watch it. I don't want to read it. I don't want to listen to it. It's just not my thing.
And I suspect that I have had enough education / indoctrination that some of that actually appeals to me. I find some of it very interesting.
Yeah. It depends on the subject matter. I mean, some stuff, cool, but some stuff I'm like, ugh. It's just, some of it just gets too depressing or too bleh.
Yeah. And some of it, it's just like, here, check the boxes, and that automatically elevates you to an award winner possible. We'll nominate you for an award if we can go down our checklist and see that you've checked all the box. Mm-hmm. Do you have this person? Do you have that person? Are you this person or that person? Mm-hmm. And really, that's not what we should be awarding?
Yeah.
I mean, I would hope. It's not what I find interesting.
I think it should be content or story first and then go from there. Not, this person is this or this person is that or
right.
has these attributes. Attributes should be secondary to story.
You said something a while ago about Orson Scott Card.
Mm-hmm.
You like his books. You don't have to like him as a person.
I don't like him as a person, but I like his stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like that. I don't really care about I suppose I should be responsible with air quotes and care about their whatever, but I don't, because, who cares?
Well, if you spend your whole life making the personal political, you end up taking the political personally.
Yeah, and I don't have time for that.
It's true.
So our book last week was Pack Dynamics by Julie Frost. It's $6 on Amazon for the Kindle.
They do sell it in a regular real book form if you're stuck on real books, but I can't tell you how much better it is to have that Kindle. You just get so many cool discounts.
I love it just because I'm farsighted, so anything close up I can't read. It's all blurry and crappy, even with my glasses on. So I like it because I can blow up the text really big and yay, I can see it.
You can get cheap reading glasses, right?
I used to be one of those hardcore, it has to be on paper. I have to feel the book. I have to touch it. I have to smell it. I'm not like that anymore. I was like, oh my gosh, I could see it.
Well, you mean actually being able to read it trumps all that other stuff?
I know, right? Who'd have thunk?
Here's the blurb as it's written in Amazon. After 7 horrific months as a POW, Army Ranger turned PI Ben Lockwood just wants a safe, boring life. With his boss on vacation, he takes what looks to be an easy case of pharmaceutical espionage he can work from his desk. Now he's caught in a 3-way collision course between a ruthless werewolf on the hunt for a cure for his dying vampire wife, a mad scientist whose multinational company doesn't even research supernatural medicine, and himself. Ben's nanotech-injected blood holds the key to the vampire's recovery, and the werewolf doesn't much care if he lives or dies in the harvesting. Ben thought he was done fighting wars when he got home from Afghanistan, but his hard-won sanity and his girlfriend's life are both at risk. He'd rather die than lose either. The battle lines are drawn in a billionaire's basement, and retreat isn't an option, no matter how outgunned he is.
Book phone with Sean.
So, last week you complained that the stuff that was in the blurb didn't happen in the book. Can we say that this was not the case here? It did happen pretty much as the blurb says?
Yes, this one definitely tells you what happened in the book.
Truth in advertising, but what doesn't really tell you all of what happened, and
No.
there's lots to it.
Definitely.
Basically, the story is you got a wealthy, ruthless werewolf who's married to a very sick vampire, which, I don't know, I didn't know that was a thing. I thought vampires and werewolves hated each other.
I know.
Yeah, come on now. I mean, don't invert like the tropes of some weird fantasy thing that I, only barely know the rules of.
I know. Well, I didn't mind it. I found it kind of refreshing to have a different spin.
Well, it did seem kind of weird in my mind to have, one group of paranormals hate another group of paranormals and have no way for that to be, like, there was no way to bridge the gap, especially since, like, they weren't born and raised like that.
I know. I'm curious to find the roots of it. I might have to look it up this week.
Yeah, maybe
where
that's
it
just a
comes
recent
from.
thing. Maybe it's not an old thing. I don't know. It's paranormal stuff. You can make it up.
I know.
But it was pretty cool. In order to try to find a cure, he starts spying on a rival biotech company run by a Playboy billionaire. Now, you were saying that the Playboy billionaire sort of reminds you of somebody?
Yes, it was like reading about Tony Stark and Pepper Potts from Iron Man. But I didn't mind it. I just found it very similar, except I think this guy's more of a drunk than a Playboy. He drinks a lot. Well, he flirts. He's very flirty with all the ladies, but he drinks
Yeah, he's
heavily.
not successful at it, is he?
No, he's not very successful at
You
it.
start to wonder if he's even really trying to be successful or he's just keeping up his image.
Well, I get the impression he was trying to keep up his image more than anything else.
Yeah.
Not
He
show
doesn't really
anybody
seem to be all
cares.
that interested in like cutting a wide swath through the ladies,
Yeah.
which is cool.
I did find him very similar, and I kind of laughed. And there was one bad guy or bad girl in the very beginning of the book that reminded me of the most recent incarnation of Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica. A blonde, cropped, short-haired blonde smoking cigars.
Yeah, so the Playboy billionaire here, he thinks that somebody is spying on his company, so he hires some outside investigators that he's worked with before. And included in that company is Ben, who's this former Army Ranger, and he just wants to be a computer hacker. He wants to sit at his desk, do some, like, forensic computer researching stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The company that he works for is run by his girlfriend's mother.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's doing his investigation. He gets kidnapped and tortured.
While he's out buying milk, he gets kidnapped.
Yeah.
We can give that much away because it's at the very beginning.
Yeah. And this starts off this chain of events, and it really pretty much looks like there's only one way for it to end. One side or the other side dead. The problem with this is it's difficult for one side to be dead when several of the people involved are undead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so keeping them dead's kind of a problem.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. This was her first novel, so I did enjoy the story. I liked the characters. I found there were some editing issues here and there. There were a couple spots where they used a word that made no sense in the sentence. and I was like, what? And there were a couple spots where I would read something and then feel like it jumped from one place to another, and I felt like maybe they had taken out a whole paragraph or something because it just didn't really go together. So I would go, did I miss something? And have to go back and read. And no, it's just... So there were some editing issues here, but it is first novel, so you kind of expect that.
Yeah, I don't know enough about being an author and that. But I also got the feeling that this was like first novel.
Yeah.
What I thought about it is I'm used to a novel like sort of stair-stepping to the climax. Here's a little bit, then a little bit more, and a little bit more, and then finally the moment of high tension, and then the resolution at the end. And it seemed like it went up and then back down, and then up and then back down, and then up and then back down.
Yeah, there was
And
like high tension, calm down. High tension, calm down.
Right. And I think that, well, that's just the way she wrote it, and I guess that's okay.
Yeah.
It was not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to her second book because I really think that, she's really talented. She's got somewhere to go with this.
She has a lot of promise, for sure.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. It was definitely, for me, worth the $6.
Mm-hmm.
I was really happy with it.
I was too.
It was very interesting. It's not something I actually would have read to begin with. I'm not really much into vampires and werewolves.
I like them. That's kind of, yeah.
I'd say that's cool. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I wanted to do with this podcast was read things I wouldn't read otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't have read this to begin with, but I'm really looking forward to her second book. So I've got her down on Amazon. I'm definitely going to follow her. And when that second book comes out, definitely going to read it.
Yeah, definitely. I did really enjoy it. It was a really fun read. It was pretty quick. Went by really fast. And yeah, I liked it a lot. Even with, little bits here and there. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it seems to me that no matter what book I pick up, I find those little errors in them.
Oh, I know. Especially in the ebooks. I see it more in the ebooks than I do in the printed. Like, I've actually gone and looked at the ebook and had the actual book and went and looked. Is this in the same? Yeah. I've noticed I think it's sometimes when it copies it over, it's not perfect.
Often wonder if I should be a copy editor since I find these things.
There you
Problem
go.
is my actual command of the English language isn't all that great. I just find all the misspellings.
Exactly. That's what I do. I'm like, what? What is that? Really?
Oh, that's supposed to be here, not her. Okay. Yeah, I found that in a couple of books. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to her next book. I like this book, and I think you all should take a real hard look at it and probably pick it up.
Yeah.
It's Pack Dynamics by Julie Frost. It's $6 for the Kindle version on Amazon, and there's a link in the show notes. Also, there's a link for the Kindle Fire 7, which is $50 on Amazon, and if you want it without any advertisements on it, it's another $15. But $50, you'll have your own e-reader, and you could play Angry Birds for free and check your email and stuff without breaking out the real computer. So give
People
that a
are
shot.
going to start thinking we work for Amazon.
Hey!
They're cheap, though.
Why should I spend extra money?
Exactly.
If Amazon's going to shovel it to me for cheap, man, point your pixels my direction.
And this one was not on the Kindle Unlimited. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, it's not on Kindle Unlimited.
The Wrong Fun podcast runs on your donations. We count on you to donate or subscribe to cover our server costs and our book and equipment expenses. Making a podcast is a lot of fun, but it's not cheap. Please consider making a donation or subscribing. Go to wrongfun.com and click on the PayPal link. You can make a one-time donation of any amount, or like our subscribers, subscribe for as little as $2 a month. It doesn't sound like much, but we pay our server costs monthly. It's a tiny amount from you, but it's a giant help to us.
Thanks for joining us on this voyage. Music courtesy of Simplify Recordings.
Send us your feedback, both good and great, to feedback@wrongfun.com.
Show notes can be found at wrongfun.com/episode 5.
The captain has locked onto the station and turned off the fasten safety restraint sign, and you are free to move about the cabin. We hope you've enjoyed your journey with us on the Wrong Fun podcast. Don't forget to like and share the Wrong Fun podcast on Facebook. And if you've booked your travel today through iTunes, make sure to leave us a glowing 5-star review. And remember, this show is powered entirely by your donations. See our website at wrongfun.com for details.
This is a URS production.
Random noise.